We are looking again at the hated spoon, kind of anthropomorphizing the silverware in a drawer and focusing in on a spoon that nobody likes. I think everybody has a spoon like this, but in this case, this spoon has feelings that are kind of complicated around not being liked. One of the focuses for this particular session, it turned out that originally I didn't have this plan specifically, but it turned out that taste played an important role in the life of a spoon, which I guess makes sense, and then in the outcome of the story. So my goal is to kind of lean into that a little more, see if there's more opportunity to build the personality around taste, and see if that can define the character's personality a bit, his experiences, his suffering, and maybe give the story just a little bit more punch. And so, of course, as we go through, we'll fix little mistakes that I found, and then before this ever goes anywhere else, I'll give it one or two more edits after that, just to simply put my best foot forward with this story. So again, thank you for being here, and let me tell you the story. The Hated Spoon by J. Wilburn. Ando had a lot of problems. He was a spoon, but he was used to that. His problem was that he was the least liked spoon. Really, he was hated. The boy had started doing the dishes in the house, so all the spoons were thrown into the drawer in a huge pile. "Get off me," Sunday said. She bumped Ando aside with a loud click. He was about to slide under the curved plastic of the silverware tray. Sugar caught him at the last second and pulled him back into the clutter of spoons. "You could have been under there for weeks," she said. Ando smiled. "It's better than being under the sink. That's where the man threw me when he was doing the dishes." It was hard to read expressions inside the closed drawer, but he saw concern and discomfort on her face. He tried his best to comfort her. It's not so bad under there, really." That was a lie. The chemicals burned. There were roaches and mice who scurried about in the dark under there. Here, he was just among friends. Whitling tried to adjust himself, but only ended up falling in with the forks. They muttered among themselves about their own problems. Whitling shouted, "I don't have it. I don't like it any more than you." Sterling tried to reach over. "Can you grab on, man?" Whitling laughed. "With what, dude? With what?" Cromwell took a deep breath and said, "One of the adults will be along shortly to straighten all this out." Ando swallowed and whispered, "I hope not." Sugar patted the bowl of his head and said, "It'll be okay." Sunday turned from the action and asked Ando, why do they hate you so much?" "They don't hate him," Sugar piped up. "Well," Ando finished for her, "the man really hates me. The boy and the woman don't care so much either way, but he hates me for sure." "Why?" Sunday asked. I don't match the set." "There is no set." Sunday motioned toward the other scattered spoons. "We're all mismatched. I was in the woman's stuff from college. Cromwell came from the man's parents' house. The boy stole Sterling from the neighbors, and no one noticed." I need to put a comma there because that's two complete clauses. She went on. As she went on, Ando took inventory of himself. He was roughly shaped like any other spoon in the world, but he had some key problems. His bowl was sort of flattened compared to the others, so he spilled more. His tail was sort of sharp. He couldn't remember if he was made that way or if it happened over time from all the episodes of being used as a crowbar or for popping out batteries from remotes. Worst of all, he thinned out in the middle. There was no real place to grip comfortably. The thin body wasn't long enough to avoid grabbing the sharp tail. Anyway, any way you held Ando was awkward. The boy and the woman did not actively hate him like the man, but they avoided using him. "Let it go," Sugar said. Ando blinked and said, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm not his taste." The drawer opened, and all the loose silver scattered around in the light. The woman stared down at the mess inside. She sorted everything into place, took a small fork, and closed the drawer. Ando ended up on top of the stack. Let's say the spoon stack. Top of this spoon stack in their proper slot. Okay. "Ooh, that's better," Whitling said. "You made it to the top," Sunday called from below. You'll get used for sure now, Ando." Ando shivered and said, "I'd rather be forgotten at the bottom so I could stay in the drawer longer." The way they do dishes around here, Sterling said. We all get used before any washing. It'll be okay, Sugar said from below. The drawer opened, and it was the man. He had a pint of ice cream. He turned up his lip as he lifted Ando from the thin middle. He bounced the hated spoon on the counter, and Ando slid into the base of the air fryer. The man lifted Sugar out and carried her away. She cast a smile at Ando before she was gone. She's good for ice cream, he said to himself. Being in the light on the counter was better than under the sink. He didn't know what it meant, though. Eventually, the light went out, and he figured this was where he'd spend the night. The light flipped back on, and Ando braced himself. It was the woman. He breathed a sigh of relief. She lifted and stared at him for a long moment. I've used the word moment a lot, so let me do while. All right. The spoon held his breath. Was she growing weary of him too? That needs to be a question mark. He had trouble reading people's expressions. Their faces were often a mystery. She opened the tray of the air fryer and started scraping out the gunk with Ando's flat head. He coughed and spit out the burnt flavors. She flipped him over and used his sharp tail to scrape even more. When he thought he couldn't take it anymore, she tossed him into the sink alone. The light went out. Before Ando could catch his breath, he heard the clicking noise. Roaches climbed up out of the wet depths of the garbage disposal. These were big and dark. Their antennae waved about. The roaches descended upon Ando, and fed on the fried remains that coated him. He tried to imagine himself back in the silverware drawer, but couldn't stop feeling their spiny legs all over him. He was in the sink a long time. Dirty dishes piled on top of him. Sauces and bits of food. Don't need an ED on the end of that. I don't know where that came from. Bits of food coated the sink all around him for days. The roaches fed well every night. In time, the dishes blocked out the light, turning night and day into continual darkness. Standing water rose out of the clogged drain and submerged Ando. It tasted of rot and stagnant waste. He knew there was other silverware in here with them. Maybe Sugar was here too, but he could not hear or cry out under the tepid swill of the sink. One day he burst from the filth into the light, gasping for air, but still tasted that nasty water. The man was in the midst of raising his voice. Seen roaches, and that's part of the problem there. Let's make that a contraction, because this guy's yelling. You speak in contractions most of the time, but especially when you're yelling. It's your responsibility to. Ando lost the rest as the boy put him under the jet of water. He wasn't completely clean afterward, but it was better as he dropped in the silverware holder of the open dishwasher. The loading and shouting continued. Then the boy pulled the spoon again and used him to scrape out a burnt pan. Ando coughed and gagged. Finally he dropped back into the hold, upside down this time, and filthy once more. The cycle was heavy, and he slept well in the drying heat. Let's say the cleaning cycle. The cleaning cycle was heavy, and he slept well in the drying heat. The next morning, he waited for the unload and his return to the drawer. The boy pulled Ando, but then returned to the sink. He used the hated spoon to clear out the clog in the drain. Ando recognized the foul taste down there. He scraped... that's fine. He scraped painfully against the blades of the garbage disposal. The roaches moved off to the side and waited for the action to end. Ando swore they looked at him like they recognized him. Back into the dishwasher alone and filthy in the darkness. It was a long time before the next cycle. The woman unloaded the dishwasher this time. She left everything on the drying pad as she went to answer the phone. Sugar called, "Ando, are you okay?" "Still here," he said, hoping to make it to the drawer. "It's been a while." Sterling spoke from a distance. "Here comes the boy, prepared to be piled up." "I'll just be happy to be home," Ando whispered. He hoped for the bottom of the pile to avoid the bottom of the sink for a while. The boy moved the dishes first, then he started on the silver. It sounded like he was stacking. Maybe the man had had a talk with him. Then the man came. He looked around the drying pad and picked up a fork. Good luck, Ando whispered. The man paused and his eyes lighted on Ando. Putting down the fork, the man took up the hated spoon. This couldn't be good. When the man left the kitchen, Ando assumed this meant the trash. But in the living room, the man used Ando to loosen some rusty screws on the, let's say, stubborn. Used Ando to loosen some stubborn, rusty screws on an old table. Let's say underneath. I know these details seem small, but sometimes small changes make things flow a little better, at least on a micro level. Ando couldn't describe the taste. He feared the misuse was making his tail sharper and would add to the hate. After a while, the man threw Ando back on the counter. The boy walked by and picked up the hated spoon, turning to the drawer. Not there. I used him as a screwdriver. The boy placed Ando back in the dishwasher. Over the next few weeks, Ando found himself used to pop lids, scrape bad leftovers into the trash, scraping the stove, scraping pans, fishing burnt toast out of the depths of the toaster. Then always back to the sink, the dishwasher, and then around to some other non-eating chore. The boy got yelled at again for letting the dishes pile. At least Ando... this we need to say had. So I got the wrong word there. At least Ando had landed in a pan. So, he was above the standing water. Man, I got a lot of misspelled words here. This must be where my brain started to shut down, I guess. So he was above the standing water. The boy picked up the pan and dropped Ando straight down into the clogged mouth of the drain. Here we go again, Ando thought. He didn't dare speak in this swill. The dishes disappeared one by one. Soon Ando was alone in the filth and stayed that way. Voices sounded low and muffled above him beyond the surface. That's fine. What was taking so long? Then he heard the rumble. Water vibrated and swirled all around him. The chunks of spoiled food stirred and rubbed around him in a circle. Then the most intense pain of his life shot through his metal body. A grinding noise filled the world as the water sucked away in a dirty gurgling. I think I don't need the ing here. In a dirty gurgle. I think that's more proper. It was the garbage disposal. Ando was trapped in it. He screamed in one continuous note that the people could not hear. The man turned off the switch and the pain wound down. Ando had never been so happy to see the person who hated him the most. I didn't know, the boy said. I couldn't see. The boy lifted Ando out of the train of torture. If you didn't let it pile up, then it wouldn't turn into... The boy screamed and dropped Ando. The hated spoon, still smarting from the disposal, hit the edge of the counter and tumbled along the floor to a baseboard under the counter. Dust stuck to him. Something was wrong. He felt wrong, broken, even though he was all there, it seemed. What happened, son? I cut myself. Not bad. On what? The spoon. The hated spoon, Ando thought. He tried to turn, but that's when he noticed his shape was wrong. The man showed his teeth and hunted... An ED on the end of that. Hunted the spoon down where it lay in the shadows. He lifted Ando into the light, and the spoon saw that he was twisted in 3 different directions. No one would be eating ice cream with him again. The man cursed as he crossed the kitchen, then said, Go wash it with soap in the bathroom, even if it stings. Use soap. All right, I think I have an opportunity to add something here. Ando thought the man was talking about hand washing him. That provided some hope. All right. Looking down at his twisted tail, Ando saw he had a keen edge, probably as sharp as a steak knife. None of this was his fault, but that didn't matter. The man held Ando above the trash can. And that false hope of hand washing melted away. Okay, let me try that sentence again just to be sure it's right. As the man held Ando above the trash can and that false hope of hand washing melted away, the spoon said sugar was better with ice cream anyway. All of them were better. He fell in among the wadded papers, scraps of food, peels, empty cans, and other wastes. The lid closed and he found himself twisted up among the other trash. Ando thought for hours, wondering what life would be like. Where did the trash go? What happened to it? What if he got recycled? He wished he had a chance to say goodbye to sugar. Ando sighed and tried to move into a more comfortable position. As he turned, he spun up through the trash like a corkscrew. Ando launched and hit the lid hard enough to pop it open before he fell back to the top of the pile. It was dark in the house. Am I able to move now? He tried again and this time launched himself up onto the edge of the open can. He could fall out onto the floor or dump himself back into the trash where the man had finally put him. Ando considered his options. If he tried to get back in the silverware drawer, he'd just make the others dirty. If he tried to put himself into the dishwasher, he'd get thrown back away now that he was twisted and useless. Probably he would get the boy in trouble because the man would think that was the only way a spoon could escape the trash. Could he be flattened out? Ando had no idea. But the man would still know something was wrong the moment he saw his least favorite spoon. The man was the key. Ando needed to make friends with the man. That was his only chance, and this was his only shot. The spoon spun himself into the floor with a clatter. A clock ticked somewhere in the house. Ando heard snoring, but didn't know what it was. No one came to investigate the noise. Ando spun himself and found he could move and steer himself along the floor quite easily. He spun past the bathroom, over the rug in front of the laundry room, and turned the corner by the boys' room. Ando knew the layout of the house better than any other spoon. The man had used him to pry out stubborn nails and to occasionally separate Legos for the boy. As Ando approached the door where the man and woman slept, he grew more angry. I should probably be angrier, but I'm going to leave it more angry for now. The man used the spoon for all sorts of chores. Why would he hate Ando when the spoon did his best to be useful? I'm going to put a question mark there. He just wanted to be a spoon. Ando reached the base of the door and considered launching himself toward the knob. He ended up curling under the edge instead. It was the man making that odd snoring sound. To Ando, it reminded him of the garbage disposal, and he felt more anger, let's say. Okay. Let me add something here. I want to add in more about taste. So that'll be, to Ando, it reminded him of the garbage disposal, and that brought up the ghost of the most foul tastes the spoon couldn't seem to forget. All right, let me read that sentence over and make sure it makes sense. All right, the spoon. Okay, here we are. The man used the spoon for all sorts of things. Ando reached the base of the door and considered launching himself toward the knob. He ended up curled under the edge instead. It was the man making that odd snoring sound. To Ando, it reminded him of the garbage disposal, and that brought up the ghost of the most foul tastes the spoon couldn't seem to forget. He felt even more anger. The spoon reached the corner of the comforter bunched on the carpet. The angry spoon climbed the patterned material. His sharp edges sliced through, but that just gave him more traction. It was the man's fault he was so sharp. Everything was the man's fault. Ando twisted his way under the covers by the man's feet. The smell of the bare feet reminded him of the sink and the taste on that clogged drain. The spoon sliced through the sheet and nicked the sole of the man's foot as he passed. The man, need to spell man correctly. Maybe I should get my son in here to teach me how to spell man. The man grunted and stopped making that horrible disposal growling noise. Ando tasted something new. It was savory and salty, a rare meaty flavor. It had been so long since he had been used for food that the spoon forgot about good flavors. Okay, let's say that marvelous taste drove out every bad memory from the sink. Okay. I think that ties together pretty well without adding a whole bunch of extra words. He looked and saw the dribble of blood from the nick in the man's foot. How could something so delicious come from that stink? That's something. Okay, that makes sense. All right, I was misreading it. How could something so delicious come from something that stank as badly as the hated man's foot? Ando had no real notion of blood. Meat was usually a fork and knife job. All right. Ando moved carefully and took another drop of blood. It was the most incredible thing he ever remembered tasting. He tried for another, but accidentally cut the foot deeper. The man cried out this time. His voice was still sluggish from sleep. The gush of blood that splashed Ando made the spoon mad with lust for more. Without much thought for the man, Ando tore after the trail of blood, ripping through the fitted sheet and the mattress as he went. Ando hardly noticed the screams as he sliced his way up the man's leg, taking hair and skin as he went. The light came dim through the stained sheet. The woman started screaming too. Let's identify this light. The end table. Be side table? Let's say bedside table. Bedside table light. There we go. All right. The bedside table light turned on and came dim through the stained sheet. The woman started screaming too. Ando sliced through the man's saggy boxers and found more tasty bits. All right. The man tumbled to the floor and started crawling away as he begged for the pain to stop. That made Ando angry. The hated man never concerned himself with Ando's pain or loss. Let's say with any of Ando's pain or loss. The spoon decided the man was worth nothing except his flavor. The spoon drove... Okay, I'll just say Ando here because I don't need to say spoon twice. Let's change it up. The utensil. Alright, there we go. The utensil dove in for more and dug deep for all the fresh flavor he could savor. Ando was wild and insane with it all. He barely remembered any of it. He barely remembered any of it as the screams turned to weeping and silence. No one noticed as the forgotten spoon moved across the floor away from the scene by himself. The red... Okay, I don't need to see the... because we haven't established it yet. Red and blue flashing lights confused him. Excuse me, I'm sorry. He eventually found his way to the kitchen and launched himself onto the counter as more people moved in and out of the house. Ando ignored it all as he tried to figure out how to open the silverware drawer. The spoon had been used for many tasks, so he was quite resourceful now that he was mobile. He got the drawer open with a few bursts of effort. Alright, a few bursts of effort. Alright, apparently I'm so moved by this story it's choking me up. In the process, he flattened himself out a little. Maybe they wouldn't notice he had been twisted. Ando dropped in the drawer with the piled and scattered silverware. The boy must have unloaded and sorted again. He had not learned the lesson from the man. Thinking of the man made Ando feel hungry and excited. An odd sensation for a spoon. The screaming started again, but this time it was the other spoons. Everyone moved away from him except Sugar. Even Cromwell was crying, and usually he was the voice of reason. "What happened to you?" Sugar asked. A drop of blood and gore had landed on her handle. Ando moved toward her to taste it, but she backed away and he stopped. "What's wrong, Sugar? I'm back." What happened to you? She asked again. Ended up in the garbage disposal and then the trash. Sterling cried from the other side of the drawer. Are we covered in garbage? Gross. I hope it's garbage, Sunday said quietly. Her voice shook. Okay, let's make this did. What did you do? Sugar asked. Ando said, I just got a little twisted, but I worked things out with the man. Someone in a uniform opened the silverware drawer the rest of the way. He stared for several seconds. Ando laughed and said, Sugar is the best spoon for ice cream. The man showed no sign of hearing Ando. Why would he? All right. Home stretch. Sugar started crying. The new man staring down at the mess in the drawer called out, Hey, I think you need to have a look at this. Ando sure did hope he hadn't gotten anyone into trouble.